Hi, welcome to this demo of SAP River, the third of a three-part series showing you how to build an application using SAP River. My name is Rafi Brill. I'm the product manager for SAP River. Hopefully you've watched the first two parts of this series, and so you'll know that this demo is about building an application that handles flights and bookings of passengers on these flights. And if you recall, in the first part of the demo, we showed you how to create your project and define your initial data model. In the second part, we added some business logic and we ran some custom actions, including debugging. But of course, no application is complete without some sort of user interface. And in this demo, I'd like to show you how we support this creation of an interface for our flights application. So going back to the HANA Studio, you recall that we have our application and we did some testing, created some test data and ran some actions. And now we'd like to expose our application to the UI so that a UI developer can build an app that consumes the services of OData. And in fact, you may have noticed that even in the initial version of the application, in the first demo, we had the OData Annotation, and this annotation indicates to the compiler that everything within this application needs to be exposed via OData. So in fact, when I activate my application, all my actions, all my entities, all my actions are available as OData endpoints and can be called via GET or POST HTTP calls. But we wanted to make it a bit easier to consume River from OData, so we created this very nice tool called the OData documentation, API documentation. And if I click on this, you'll see that I get a very nice formatted report, which indicates to me what are the entities within my application, what are the views and actions, and for each of these entities, I can then get a list of all the custom actions, either the default actions or the custom actions for my entity. And if I click on an entity, I can then get details about the URL endpoint which I need to call this entity, what is the method, whether it's GET or POST, what does the request body look like, and what is the response body that I would expect to receive in return. And all this is just a web page hosted on XS, which is being hosted within or displayed within an Eclipse view. So if I now click on properties and copy the URL for this page, and I will then go to a browser and log in as my user. You can see that I get the exact same page in my browser. So this is in fact just a web page hosted on the XS web server within HANA. And I could in fact take this URL, email it to a counterpart, a UI developer, and assuming they have access to my network, they could actually log on to this page, get access to the specification, and use this to understand my application and build a UI logic. And this is, of course, the human-readable version of the API, but in fact, we also support the $metadata or the XML format for OData because we generate OData compliant XML. So if I then copy this URL and paste it into my browser, you can see that I now get the same thing in XML format. So a fully compliant EDMX document with all my entities and associations and actions and so forth. So this could be used either by a developer who understands or can read EDMX, or by a tool that knows how to parse EDMX in order, for example, to generate a starter UI application. So, of course, now I could go ahead and build my UI5 application and embed calls to OData. We already have a UI application that does that. River is not about UI, so we're not going to teach you how to write UI5. So I have a set of files from my application, and I'm going to add them to my program. And the best way I've found to do this is to actually drag or copy these files into my workspace. I could have actually done this via the HANA Studio, but I found it's easier to do it via the file system, so that when I go back to the HANA Studio and refresh my project, you will see that the files are now there. And all I have to do now is just click Activate. And my application is now live. So all these artifacts are active. And so now let's go to the browser and click on the URL for my app. And again, I have to log on with my credentials. And so this is my very, very basic River Airlines application. When I click List All Flights, it's going to retrieve the 10 flights which I generated in the earlier step. So you can see all my flights at Tel Aviv to Las Vegas. And let's pick the last flight, which is the only flight that's actually open. And now we can try and book a passenger. So we'll book myself again. We'll ignore the email address. This time let's pick a window seat. I'm over 18, and let's click Book Seat. And this is in fact running the same action that I showed you earlier, but it's running it from my UI application. So in fact, I'm now assigned seat 1A, and it turns out the weather in Las Vegas is still clear and it's still 0 degrees. So that completes the demo of River. Just to recap, in this demo we showed you how to access the OData API documentation, how to access the dollar metadata, so the EDMX documentation, and how you would add an UI application to your project, activate it, and then use it to integrate to call the River backend. So thank you very much for listening. Hope you found this demo useful, and look forward to getting your feedback on SAP River. Thank you.